Okay. Hello, everyone. We still have people joining, but I'd like to get our webinar here started. My name is Russell Day. I'm the chairman of the Business and Legal Studies area at Penn Foster, and we're happy to have John Schroeder here tonight as our presenter. And he'll be talking about experiences in the mortgage business and the importance of networking. And I'd like to just kind of let people know a couple things before we get started. Mr. Schroeder's going to, his talk tonight is going to be recorded, and we'll be posting the recording to the academic business area of the community, and that'll probably get posted sometime next week. In the meantime, we will, take any questions as we're going through the webinar, and I hope that you find his presentation informative and interesting. So I'd like to, before we turn it over to John, I'd like to just go over a couple things to make sure that you're familiar with the webinar console that you see on the right-hand side. First, you have a control panel on the right side of your screen. You can minimize that and maximize that by clicking on the arrow button in the top left corner of the control panel. So if you want to minimize it, you click on the arrow. If you want to bring that control panel back out, you can click on that again. So you can expand it and contract it. And then second, you're going to have the ability to submit questions. Some of you already have. We already have a few. And basically, there should be a box marked questions where you can type in your question, and it'll show up on the screen so that we can take a look at it. And basically, I'll be looking at the questions and feeding the questions to John Schroeder tonight. So we have a lot of people signed up for this webinar, and I'm not sure that we'll be able to get through all of the questions this evening, but we'll try to do the best we can. You're encouraged to, ask questions as we're going through, and we'll stop at certain points and try to get them answered for you. We've allowed about 2 hours for this webinar. I'm not sure whether we're going to use the whole 2 hours, but last time we did a webinar, for those of you who were in that webinar, it went about 90 minutes. So we're going to go a maximum of 2 hours this time, but it could be less than that. Just before we get started, if you could go ahead and type in the question box, just type in your name and where you're from. I just want to make sure that everybody's able to hear us. So feel free to take a moment and type in the question box your name and where you're from, so we can kind of see where everybody's from here. Looks like we have people from, we have people from Texas, Virginia, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Alabama, Kansas. Oh, you're all over the place. So it looks like we have a good turnout, and looks like you're from all around the country. All right. So let's get started. As I said, today's presenter is John Schroeder. He's owned or run many types of businesses, and we'll be talking about his experience in the mortgage business and the importance of networking tonight. So I'm going to turn the mic over to John, and he can give you a quick bio on himself, and then he can begin the presentation. So John, let me just give the mic over to you. All right, you should be able to, they should be able to hear you now, John.
Okay, you're going to have to change the slides for me, it looks like, Russ.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, anyway, good evening, everybody. I'm John Schroeder. If you've been with us in the other presentations on being self-employed, you probably remember I had talked to you before about being in the retail business as well as in the recording studio business. I probably did about 7 different things as an entrepreneur over my working life. I'm pretty much retired now. But the last one that I did, and certainly the most profitable, was the mortgage business. And really what I did there was to arrange loans for people who were trying to buy a house themselves, and then I, from that, grew and expanded into the commercial side of things where people were trying to buy property in which to run their businesses from. Let's go ahead and go to the first slide, Russ, if we can.
Okay.
So in the key points in succeeding as an entrepreneur, I threw some bullet points up here. It's kind of one of those, tell them what you're going to tell them, then I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to review it again. So if you pick up these 7 points here in the beginning, you really have an overview, and I get into some pretty interesting details later on. But one thing I really have to stress, there are times that I got involved in self-employment projects with other people who they understood the business that I was getting drawn into, but I didn't. And I was a quick study, and I was able to go ahead and pull that off where I was brought up to speed. But what I didn't know going into it is really what hurt me the most as far as trying to be successful in that field. So you really only want to get involved with businesses that you really understand, and I'm going to add to that that you really love. You need to have a passion for this, because believe me, if you were to become a self-employed person, I can tell you that there were years that I was making less than minimum wage because I was on a learning curve and putting in so many hours trying to get up and running. So if you don't love it and you don't really understand it, you've got yourself really behind the 8 ball before you got started. One way to be able to understand a business that you want to be involved with as an entrepreneur is to pick a competitor, one that you really like out there in the business, and say that you want to copy everything that they do. And you can get to know them inside and out, maybe by going to work for them, or you might, certainly being in college right now, you guys may be able to get an internship there. Whatever it takes in order to be able to get an inside look. You can certainly be a customer on the outside and see what they do, but an inside look and get to know the inner workings of the company, and maybe even get a mentor within the management structure to help you through that and let them know, hey, I'd like to do what we're doing here on my own someday. And nobody, believe me, takes offense to that. I can tell you the number of times that I've had people that were working for me that say, I'd like to be your competition someday. I welcome it, and most people do, saying, look, you may or may not, and there's always room for very good and successful people out there. The next one that says join every win-win networking opportunity you can. There are a lot of ways of being able to network. But in that, I mean that you would join a lot of organizations, clubs, even churches, that sort of thing, in which you wind up getting to know people not only on a professional basis, but starting on a personal basis, because then you have that camaraderie, and then you have that automatic, that they trust you, and that they understand you as an individual first, and then they go, that's the kind of person I'd like to be able to do business with. So that's one way to be able to do networking, and we'll cover that in greater detail later. When you do get, especially with your first customers, I have to really stress, you want to under-promise and over-deliver. That means that you do not go out there and say, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, and then all of a sudden you disappoint them, because your first customers are going to be the most important advertising vehicle you have to be able to continue on. I found that they were the best way to advertise, satisfied customers, and certainly the cheapest. And being able to treat them well not only makes for getting other customers through them on a referral basis, but helps you, there we go. Yeah. It helps you to, on a referral basis, but it also establishes your confidence in yourself and being able to be a good entrepreneur out there. I will say that the customer isn't always right. I've certainly run into customers who you just need to set them loose. And I'll give you an example in a larger corporation that went through this, and that is Sprint, like Sprint cell phones. It was a number of years ago now, but it made the headlines that Sprint fired 1,000 customers. They sent them a letter and said, I'm sorry, we are not going to provide you cell phone service anymore. And if you were to take a look at it, they did their homework and found out that these people were constantly on the phone with them in terms of customer service, tech support, complaining, and it was to the point where they were spending more time and man hours and and technical support for these people than they were collecting from them in the monthly fees that they were paying for their cell phone service. And so they said, okay, sorry, but you need to go away from here. Now, of course, the immediate reaction is, you're sending 1,000 people to go to your customers. And of course, that came up in the article. And the guy who was being interviewed said, good, these people cost cell phone companies money. I don't think it's just Sprint that they were not going to be happy with. And we're constantly going to be a dredge on the customer support and tech support services. So if they do go to our competition, that's only the best thing that can happen. If anything else, it was just stopping the bleeding. But you don't want to do that to everybody. So be smart in picking the battles of which customers you go ahead and say, you know, you're not always right in this case. God bless you. Go move on to the next thing. Finally, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to say before you get started, go ahead and Google business plans and find out what all the pieces and parts are of a business plan and put it down to the last detail. And the reason that I say that is because I can tell you I've done a number of business plans in my life, and after I've written them out, I almost never went back and read them again. It didn't matter. It had my mindset already going in the direction of how to be able to know what to do from there. What I'm saying is if you created this huge document, call it 100 pages long, with financial forecasts and all the pieces and parts you need to put together to have a successful business, once you have done that, it stays with you. It becomes a part of your regular thinking so that you automatically know the answers that are consistent with that business plan. But you do need to do it the first time in order to get there. Okay, Russ, next slide. This is giving you an idea that you see the percentage over there to the left as far as what percent of that industry wind up being self-employed. Okay, so you wind up looking over there on the left and you say, all right, you've got farmers or people that are in forestry, fishing, hunting, that sort of thing, that of all of the employees or all the workers in that industry, up to 30% of them are self-employed, not working for, you know, a public corporation. And then you go down to contractors like in the construction business or the what we call 1099 or contract workers that are not straight employees that work in the construction business. They have this all other services except public administration. That means that you work for a city or a government or something like that. And then you come to the one that I was involved in, real estate and rental and leasing. So I'll stop right there, not looking at the others, but just giving you an idea that it doesn't matter which division you're in or which industry you're in. Very few of the percentage of employees in that are actually self-employed. So they're W-2 or regular employees working for somebody else. Next slide, Norris.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. One of the easier ways to be able to get set up in a business is to be able to open up a franchise. Now, I need to warn you about that because it sounds like, you know, franchise is just an automatic dead bang winner when it comes to something like McDonald's. You know, and believe me, McDonald's actually has the guideline that you need to have a net worth of $1 million before they'll talk to you. It doesn't mean that you have to write them a check for $1 million, but you do need to have that much money in order to be able to get established, and they rarely fail. Okay, so McDonald's is one of the examples of a huge franchise that is out there and very successful. Most of the time, a Starbucks or a Subway. As a matter of fact, Subway's has more outlets than just about anybody else in the world, but they don't bring in as much money as, say, a McDonald's or a Starbucks because of the pricing of what they do. The next slide is going to talk about what happens when you don't have a McDonald's. You see a lot of the logos up there of some of the bigger franchise companies, but then they're, in fact, all of those are known names at some point throughout the United States. But what you're seeing there, for instance, I live in Arizona, and I've never heard of Cafe Nero, Pizza Express, Pret, or Costa Coffee. The other ones, yeah, they're certainly out there. I'll tell you one that's big in this area that is not nationwide, and you know, it's kind of a surprise to people that grow up around it, is Jack in the Box. You may be familiar with their commercials because they're hilarious, and they have a great ad campaign, but Jack in the Boxes are not in all 50 states out there. So there are some states that go, Jack in the Box, what is that? It's a fast food chain similar to McDonald's or Burger King, but they haven't quite grown to the extent that the other ones do. If you are joining up with a consultancy, and that's what I call these franchisees that are not such well-known names, what you really do is paying somebody a lot of money to come in and act as your consultant to be able to get you to set up business. Now, when you open a McDonald's, everybody knows who that is. So there's not only the consultancy of telling you, here are the products to buy, here's how to set everything up, here's how the kitchen's supposed to be hooked up. All of that not only is good information, and they do it so well, but you also have the brand recognition of McDonald's. If you go out there and open, John Schroeder's hamburgers place, even though, let's say I have 10 locations out there and I know what I'm doing, you get no brand recognition at John Schroeder's hamburger place. So be very careful when you're thinking that a franchise is always a dead bang winner. So if you're not pretty well heeled, that's not a good way to be able to start, although it's an easier way to get started if that's really what you've got in mind. Next slide, Russ. Now, here's the difference, and a lot of people don't even think in these terms, but it has to do with whether or not you get involved in some kind of manufacturing, something that requires carrying inventory, or to be involved in a service business. What we're going to look at in some detail is the loan business, basically residential mortgages. Is what I'll focus on, because you'll understand that, coming from a consumer point of view. I dealt with consumers all day just trying to make sure that they were able to get in their own home. But if you have a business that requires some kind of inventory or manufacturing and that sort of thing, it is very expensive to get tied up in that. If you see the logos that I have up there, those are my examples. General Motors has, you see the logos of Chevrolet and Buick, GMC, and Cadillac. All of them fall under General Motors. It's the parent corporation to all four of those kinds of companies. So they have billions of dollars invested in being able to have their manufacturing plants and all the parts and service that goes along with it. The individual dealerships, they make a deal with them, but they're selling the cars to those dealerships, and the dealerships actually finance that through a bank. So I could go open up, let's say, a Chevrolet dealership and put about $50 million into inventory. It's not that I have to write a $50 million check. I just get a bank to loan me the $50 million that I pay to General Motors to send me all those cars for the lot, and then the loan gets paid down as I sell every car, and then the loan gets built back up as I replace those cars with new inventory. But believe me, we're talking $50 million, and that's a whole lot of money that, in other words, I'm just trying to make it clear that jumping right into a manufacturing kind of business without having the background in it and not being pretty well heeled yourself is a much tougher way to go. So being able to get into the service business, when you see Quicken Loans over there, they're huge, and I'm sure you're familiar with Quicken, certainly through the company QuickBooks. As far as an accounting software. So they were very good at not only doing software, but in being able to provide service. And I can tell you, when I got involved in doing the mortgage business, until I became self-employed, I was required by law to work for somebody for 3 years before I could actually get my own license. And in doing so, when I became self-employed, I just started working out of my own home. There was no reason for me to go open an office or anything else. In fact, people really liked that I came to them to take loan applications and all that. So to be able to get into a service business, you can work out of your house, and you're able to just do it almost overnight. That last line down there on the bottom was one I really had to learn, because I sold a lot of things in my life, but I'll tell you, the only things that really worked out for me was when I started selling things that were expensive, like home loans. If you've got a $250,000 home loan and you make 1% off of that, that's $2,500. If you're selling pet rocks and they sell for $5, well, then you made a nickel. Now, you can sell an awful lot of pet rocks, but I can tell you, it's so much easier to sell one home than it is to sell, 1 million pet rocks. Not so easy to do. So let's go into a little more detail from there. Next slide, Russ. Now, I'm going to give you a few background hints as far as when you are self-employed of things that can really come to bite you if you're not familiar with it. A lot of people have no background whatsoever when it comes to how to handle finance, accounting, balancing your checking account, and being able to budget and things like that. So the first thing you do is kind of throw yourself on the mercy of a CPA. CPAs are excellent for this. I'm going to tell you, if you're like most entrepreneurs just getting started, you would be surprised at what a black hole a CPA can be to pour your money into. Because if you're actually getting the CPA to do it, they'll charge you over $100 an hour to be able to offer the kind of help that they do. And they have lesser rates for the bookkeepers who, you know, handle your checkbook and balance your checking accounts and do your financial statements. But it is very expensive to get involved with them. I would strongly suggest in getting a background in school. And in fact, I did this myself. When I first went to for my bachelor degree, I was in marketing as a major. I actually changed my major to finance, not because I love finance, but because I realized as an entrepreneur I needed to understand accounting and finance well in order to be able to be successful as an entrepreneur. So I changed and forced myself to learn that into the world. And then when I got an MBA, I went and got that in marketing, so I made sure that I had those skills as well. So CPA is very expensive, but if you can afford them, God bless you, go for it. The other one you're seeing over there to the right, ADP, which is automated data processing, or paychecks, are worth their weight in gold to you. When you're an entrepreneur and you start having payroll in order to take care of, not only for you, and you will for yourself as well, because you do have to draw a paycheck from some of the types of businesses. Let's say you incorporate, as a corporation, you have to draw a paycheck. You need to issue a paycheck, and once you do that, you have to get an employer tax identification number, and you have to file all sorts of forms. And if you mess up on payroll tax money, it is something you cannot bankrupt out from under. I have seen so many companies that said, hey, I just can't afford to write that check to the government, so I just won't do it for the taxes that I withheld from my employees. And then it goes to the next payroll when they can't afford it, the next payroll you can't afford it, and the next thing you know, they owe $100,000 or more in back payroll taxes that are just never forgiven. Believe me, the IRS will make a lot of deals with you, but they will not on that. So it's very inexpensive even for a startup company. For instance, Paychex or ADP will take a small company, even if you're the only person drawing a paycheck, and for about $50 a month, they will stay on top of all of the withholdings, et cetera, that you need to do. You really want to use one of these companies in order to be able to handle payroll. Next slide. Here's a number of the things that you didn't know that'll come to bite you. For instance, you think that if you're paying, employees, call it 10 or 20 bucks an hour, that you take the amount of, let's say that they work 40 hours a week, $10 an hour, that you owe $400. I'm sorry, $400 in the payroll to that person. The answer to that is wrong. And the reason I say that is that if most of you have been out there and had a paycheck issued to you, and so you can see from this slide in the middle section there where it says a 941 deposit, that's what they call the federal withholding. So the top number is all of the money that they withhold for federal taxes. Then you see the next two lines that say Medicare and Social Security for the employee tax. That's the money you withheld from your employee's check in order to be able to pay the Medicare and Social Security taxes. That grayed area below that where it says Medicare and Social Security for the employer, notice those numbers are exactly the same. That's money that you have to come up with out of your pocket that is not deducted from the employee. So there, in other words, you have to match those funds. So if you think that, if it's 7.15% is the Social Security tax and that's a lot of money, guess what? It's 15, actually it's 15.3 between Social Security and Medicare. So they're actually withholding or being paid, the government's being paid twice as much as the amount of money that's being withheld from the employee paycheck is the check you have to send forward to the government. If you do not have that money out, believe me, they are not forgiving for it. That can shut you down faster than anything else. So I want you to know that if you're trying to budget for payroll and you're saying, here's how much I have to pay all the employees out there, your liability as an employer is between 15 and 20% higher than the actual amount gross pay that you have to give to the employee. And that does not include any health benefits like health insurance if you cover that for them, or if you have matching funds for a 401k plan or other benefits like dental and optical and that sort of thing that you might add onto the benefit package. So if that happens, that's all additional money that's coming out of your pocket. So be ready to find out that your expenses are much higher. And one thing that's not even talked about in here is workers' compensation insurance. Depending on what kind of business you're in, if you're in construction, oh my gosh, that can be another 20% that is added on to the payroll amount just to have your employees covered under worker compensation. Next slide, Russell.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John.
Go ahead.
Before we go on, I just want to let everybody know, I see quite a few questions in here about where the recording is going to be for the presentation. It's going to be in the community, the academic section, and then you click on the business area, and we'll have it in there for you in the featured content. So if anybody has any questions about it, you can always email me next week. It won't be posted until then. So sorry there, John. I just wanted to answer a lot of questions all at once. So.
All right. Were there any that have come up that are related to what we have here? Because it's probably...
well, I just have someone asking about the fact that some of the suggestions that you have, do they apply to your own online business? You know, and
they definitely will. And there's no question, if you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur for an internet-type company, the kind of things that I'll be talking about here are definitely going to apply to it, because when we're talking about payroll, or we're talking about whether you use a CPA or not, or whether you will wind up trying to franchise, because there are even franchises online as far as what you do from there. These things apply generally, but I will be getting into some specifics later on as far as what advertising works and what doesn't, or hasn't for me. Frankly, because I am a retired guy, and social media is in constant contact and things like that have been more of a phenomenon in the past 5 to 10 years. I don't have as much background with that, but I will be addressing it later on in the presentation.
Okay. All right, great. I'll let you take over then.
Okay. More things that you didn't know that you didn't know. Many times when you're getting involved in something, there is a set of, or a code of ethics that control your behavior as far as what you're allowed to do. I know a lot of people that were very excited about real estate say, man, I am going to call everybody in the city of Los Angeles, and I'm going to call every one of them and find out which one of them want me to sell their home. Or if I have people that want me to sell their home for them, I'm going to call everybody and I'm going to sell a home to them. Well, guess what? That's against the code of ethics of being a part of the National Association of Realtors. You are not allowed to do individual cold calls in order to be able to do that. That doesn't mean that some people don't do it, but if they get caught, they can actually lose their license. I'm going to keep going back to things in real estate as an example, because that was my own direct experience, and to be able to speak from experience on that and give you some anecdotes. But the code of ethics of how you're able to operate online, I'll give you a good one here. You know how Google works is that you have a per-click charge. And so here you are with a code of ethics, and you're going, you know what? I could go to my competition and I could set up a little batch program that would constantly click through on my competition, and even if it's only costing them 3 cents per click, if I set up about 6 dedicated computers to just keep doing that like 100 times a minute, guess what kind of a bill you could run up to them without generating any income, because it's all coming from you. Well, that sounds like an interesting idea, to go ahead and make Google richer than they are and to bankrupt your competition out there, until you find out how Google handles this. First of all, once it's identified, Google will go back and not charge the customer for what was obviously not a true per-click charge event, since it was all coming from the same IP addresses. But when they find out who you are, they will delete you from the world of Google. That's just easily as saying they're going to slit your throat in the world of business, because as soon as you are not able to be found on a Google search for your business and you're an internet-based organization, you're in a lot of trouble. So Google has come down really hard on people that will do something like that in order to seemingly be able to get a foot up on the competition. So those are examples of trying to make sure that you don't violate a code of ethics, and people are very serious about this. I mean, you lose your license to operate and you're done. Next slide, Russell.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Moment. Yeah, sorry. There it goes. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. What I am talking about here, and this is especially true for people that are going to be involved in an internet-based operation, and that has to do with what's called a FICO score. What does FICO stand for? It actually, I'll be one of the few people that can tell you because I was around before it came into being in the 90s. It stands for the Fair Isaac Corporation. That was a couple of economists and statisticians who got together and developed what's called the FICO score to be able to give you a credit score. Before that, you just looked at a credit report and tried to, evaluate it as far as saying, okay, this is good, this is not so good, and overall we're going to say that we think this is a mediocre credit risk here. Well, what the FICO score did is it reduced it down to a number so that mortgage companies in particular could say, if you don't have a score of 620 or better, you can't get the home loans that we can sell to the government. You probably heard the names Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or FHA. And so they came up with a number that the government agreed to, and that really established what good credit, great credit, and bad credit is all about. What you're seeing here on the screen are really the levels of what they have for those credit designations, going all the way from 560 or lower is bad, to 659 is not good, to 724 is good, and then you have very good up to 759, and if you're at 760 or higher, it doesn't matter. You'll have people falling all over themselves trying to lend you money at that point. So this is just giving you an overview of a FICO score, and if you are late with your payments and that sort of thing, you're going to get a lower FICO score as a result of it. If you have charge-offs on your credit report, that lowers it more. If you don't make your payments on your student loans, I guess I'll make that content relative to what's going on here, that definitely hurts it as well. But here's the point. If you do not have a good credit score, you will not be able to qualify to accept Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, or even PayPal. Because if you're not a good credit risk, why would they allow you to be involved in the world of credit where you can, it's very easy to go ahead and do fraud, embezzlement, and that sort of thing. I can tell you at one time, and it's not this bad anymore, but at one time, because there were just so few safety guards in the internet, that early on, 2/3 of the transactions that happened online with credit cards were fraudulent. That didn't mean they got completed. It just means people would go steal credit card numbers, try to get online and order all the stuff that they possibly could, and then they would not get the stuff delivered to them. People would figure out, okay, this is a stolen credit card. But everything wasn't real time back. They'd go ahead and upload the credit card information. Somebody would try to order something, and if they got it shipped to them, that'd be great. And if they didn't, well, what did they lose? Other than a couple of minutes in trying to steal the money off of the credit card company. So you really need to have a good credit score in order to be able to qualify. And if you do not do this for your internet-based business, you are in a world of hurt. Next slide.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions here that I thought we might just try out. I've got one about the credit cards. Are they a good idea? Are they a bad idea when you're trying to maintain a good credit score?
So the question is whether or not you should have credit cards. Right. Are they improving? It's a law of diminishing returns. First of all, one type of credit card you do not ever, am I making that clear, ever want to get is what would be called a consumer credit card. That would be like if you went down and got the card from the local sporting goods shop, or this clothes or Victoria's Secret or whatever it is. Those cards that are specifically for those particular stores, not a Visa or MasterCard with a sponsor name on it, but just for that particular store, are very popular, and people think that that starts to establish your credit. If you can't get any other kind of credit card, I guess they definitely will do that. But the thing is they literally lower your score when you have other credit appearing on there. So if the best credit cards to get are the Visa, the MasterCard, American Express, and Discover that have a high credit limit on there. The reason being is once you go over, and you have to be very careful about this, that you do not exceed 30% of the limit on that card. Let's say you get a $10,000 credit limit on a credit card. Once you go over $3,000 on that, that credit card will start to lower your FICO score. But if you use that credit card every month and you pay it off every month, that raises your credit score. And boy, you start having late payments and accruing late charges and penalties and fees, that really starts to hurt your score. So you need to be very careful with how you handle it, but a little bit of using credit cards is good and a lot is not.
Okay. I had one other question a little further back here, asking about matching amounts for 1099 workers. I believe it has to do with the Social Security and the Medicare payments.
Oh, you betcha, and that's a huge issue, and I'm glad the question came up because, frankly, I probably should have addressed that. And that is, there will be a real part of you that will go, hey, I can hire everybody as a 1099 or a contract worker, and then I'm not responsible for withholding their taxes. And guess what? As a 1099 worker, that 15.3% that I was showing you earlier that you have, as the employer, have to write the check and send it to the government, your 1099 worker is the one that has to write that check to the government. That's where you really get in trouble. Those are the people that don't realize that, oh my gosh, I'm my own employer and I am responsible for sending this tax money to the IRS. It doesn't work for either one of you, and let me tell you why. The IRS is going to catch that person who is the 1099 person and did not pay their taxes, and when you exceed $600, that is the limit. As soon as you pay $600 or more in a year, in a single calendar year, to any of these 1099 people, you must issue them a form at the end of the year. It's called a 1099. That's why it's called the 1099 or contract employees. So when you don't issue that form to them, you become liable for the taxes that they don't pay. So in other words, the IRS will go after them and they'll try to collect the money, but if those people are not able to pay it, they have the right by law to come after you if you did not issue a 1099 to them. Now, if you issue the 1099 to them, then you're free and clear. Then the IRS will come back and say, I have a list, and I'm not kidding, it's over 40 different points. If you have to answer yes to 2, 3, 4 of any of those 40 points, you should not have allowed them to be a 1099 employee, and you become liable. It's not that bad. You're probably liable for about $50 as a fine for every one of them. But you do not want to come under IRS scrutiny, because as soon as they've nailed you for that, you're going to get audited. And then you'll find out how much money you get to owe them after the IRS has gone through your books with a fine-tooth comb. So yes, it's you really have to be very careful about designating somebody as a 1099. Google what the questions to decide whether somebody should be a W-2 or a 1099 employee, and you'll be able to bring up that list of 40-some-odd questions, and you'll be able to see for yourself. I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, they do not qualify for being a contract employee or a 1099.
Okay. Just have one more question. This is kind of going back to the credit cards and what's the best way to build your credit as a first-time credit builder or buyer, well, I guess.
Yeah, actually there are a number, and you can go, it's the term to remember, a secured credit card, because it doesn't really show up on a credit report as being a secured credit card, but let's say, I think the lowest amount that you can do, at least the last I heard, was for $350. What you do is you write a $350 check to a bank. HBSC is one, Peachtree is another, and you can just Google them and say secured credit card providers, and then you'll get a whole list of all of them. You write them a $350 check, they send you a Visa or a MasterCard that has a credit limit of $350. There's no risk to them as far as that goes, because they've already got the money up front. Now what you need to do is to not use that card extensively, but use it every month. You know, go out to dinner once, fill your car up with gas, whatever, and pay that thing back in full to get it back up to the $350 every month, and you will have done your credit a real service. Another thing that's very important is to have long-standing credit. 10% of your scores, of your credit score, is made up of making sure that your credit accounts are really only judged for how long they've been seasoned or around. And it only starts to help you when those credit cards have been around for a year or more, because then you know if you've got a good payment record with them. So that's how the FICO score, big long word here, but algorithm works to be able to give you the overall score. Says, okay, well, they've had a perfect payment record, but they've only had the card for 3 months. Now, if you've had that card for 5 years and you have a perfect payment record, you can tell that that's going to affect a credit decision much more positively than you would have otherwise. So, yeah, it's important to go ahead. If you can't get those credit cards in the beginning, just signing up on your own, get a secured credit card in order to do it. And if you are able to get a credit card just based on your own credit, do not ever exceed 30% of the allowed credit line on it, or you'll start doing damage to your FICO score instead of helping it.
Yeah, I just have another question. This all revolves around credit cards, I guess. Best way to improve your credit score, and using a credit card, is it a good idea to keep it at 0? Those kind of questions.
Right, and the 30% is an excellent hint on that. But here's some things. When you pull a credit report, it is never going to be 0, even if you pay the thing off every month, because credit card inquiries, as far as into a balance, are based on whatever day that credit report is pulled. So let's say that you went out to dinner, filled your car up with gas, you bought some clothes, and you know, made a payment of some sort off of the credit card. Those balances that you haven't paid yet, even though you intend to pay them down to 0, are going to show as a balance on that particular day. So as a matter of fact, I've very often been able to go over 30% on a credit card if I wind up going on a business trip or something like that, and did do damage to my credit score for that temporary amount of time in which it went higher than that. Now, here's how I wound up fixing that. Instead of having like 3 cards that were you know, $15,000 each as far as a credit limit, I went ahead and got 1 card, just cut the other ones up, and I have 1 card at $45,000, and then I never go over the 30% limit on that. When you've been around a long time, you'll be able to do that too. But the point is that you definitely don't want to have more than 4 of these credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and all that. Don't have more than 4 of them out there. You want them to be over 12 months seasoned before they start doing you any good, and you do not want to go over 30% of the available limit on it. Those are the basics to keep in mind on the consumer credit cards.
Okay. I think we caught up there, so let me move on to the next section.
Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but just realize that there are a number of different ways that you can form a legal entity, if you will. The one all the way over on the right, if you look at the top line of that matrix, it says sole proprietorship. That's actually my favorite. I have done all of these. I have had corporations that I could sell stock to the public. I've had private corporations in which it's just me and some partners, or me alone. I even did a partnership once. Don't ever do that. Not that I'm against partnerships, but it's just such an outdated and outmoded way of being able to do business instead of incorporating or having an LLC. That you really don't want to go down that road. All right, but what happens is that if you're not a sole proprietor and you decide to become a corporation, you have what's called a corporate shield. In other words, the world of business allows you to have a corporate shield that says they can't come after your personal assets if you were to get sued. So I mean, you know, you take a CEO or Henry Ford back when he first invented the car out there, and he incorporates as the Ford Motor Company. If somebody were to sue him after they got in a wreck, no matter what he wound up doing, they would not be able to come after his personal assets, because all they could do is sue the Ford Motor Corporation unless they could figure out how he personally caused them to get into that accident. So that's what having a corporation is good for, is it keeps you secured from being able to be sued personally for your own assets. So they can't come after your home, your car, your clothes, and so on. if you were to get into a lawsuit like that. Now, you probably heard me just mention briefly the sole proprietorship is actually my favorite. And the reason that I like the sole proprietorship is that I had to go through business in which occasionally you do get sued. And you go, oh my gosh, I've got this out there. And I started to watch what was happening. Every time I got sued as a corporation, I got sued as an individual as well. So, you know, they're trying to link you in to see if they can get a hold of you. Here's two things that can really get you in trouble with that. When they sue the corporation and they sue you individually, what they do is try to find you making a mistake with your bookkeeping. That's the number one thing. Or maybe you didn't have a board of or stockholders meeting once a year, which is a requirement of a corporation. And now I'm going to tell you one that's really funny. You're supposed to keep minutes of that annual meeting of your stockholders. And you're going, wait a minute, some of these things over here say that you can have one owner. I'm supposed to have a meeting with myself? Yes. Not only do you have to have a meeting with yourself, you have to document it in the form of minutes. And you have to keep those in the notebook to be able to turn over to an attorney at any time that they're asked for. And if you do not have that book of minutes, you lose the right of being able to have that corporate shield. And that's one way they pierce it, is the legal term, to be able to pierce the corporate shield because you didn't act like a corporation. Another way that people make some problems for themselves with this is by using their corporate checkbook to pay their personal bills. You start having the corporation pay your house payment or your car payment or your MasterCard payment for what you did personally, and that's another misuse of it, and that's another way that you can lose the protection of the corporation. So what's been easier for me is to go ahead, instead of having to have the guys in the white coats take me away when I have my annual board meeting with myself, I go ahead and become a sole proprietorship, and then you don't have any board meetings. Can I be sued personally? Absolutely you can, because I'm the only company owner to be able to sue. But here's the difference, and this is a good one to remember. Write this one down. If you're a sole proprietorship, make sure you get what's called E&O insurance. E&O are the first initials for errors and omissions. Errors and omissions. What that stands for is it says you are now insured by an insurance company, just like you would be in a car or a home or something like that, for any errors or you omitted, left something out, didn't do something right that you should have done, and you were actually covered for that by the insurance company. When I was in the mortgage business, my E&O insurance for $1 million of coverage was $350 a year. It was very inexpensive for the amount of protection that you get with that. And here's the best part. Somebody sues you, you are now insured. Just like if you get in a car wreck, you just turn the thing over to the insurance company and they provide the lawyers, fix everything, and it takes care of everything for you. The errors and omissions insurance does that as well. It takes care of your legal fees because you are covered and they hire the law firm to go in there and represent you. Well, guess what? These insurance companies have excellent law firms representing them who are now representing you. If you're the guy who's out there going, oh, geez, I got to go find a lawyer for $50 an hour, I've had $50 an hour lawyers, and you do not ever want to hire them. You will be very sorry you did. So, sole proprietorship, E&O insurance for $1 million is very inexpensive, and that's probably my best recommendation there. I have no problem with being an LLC, but just make sure that you maintain all of the rules and guidelines and follow them to the letter so nobody can bust that or pierce the corporate shield if anything comes up. Next slide.
Yeah, I have a question regarding that. Talking about S corporations, and can they be closed and changed to a sole proprietorship?
Absolutely, and all that would happen is that you would just close out the S corporation, the LLC, the C corporation. It's saying joint stock company up here, but it's the S corp, the C corp, the LLC are just different types. The reason they come up is that they are designations that is given by the Securities and Exchange and IRS as far as guidelines that you have to follow. The sole proprietorship falls out of having any guidelines provided for them by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So what would happen is you would close your S Corp down, just say we're done, we're not doing business anymore, file your final tax returns and put it to bed, and at the same time you go ahead and start your sole proprietorship. Now, how do you do that? I don't have slides for this, but I can just verbally tell you, you need to get, if you do business this way, let's say that I was John Schroeder Mortgage Company, I don't need to do this. But let's say I wanted to become JS Mortgage, and that was the name I wanted. Because it's not my name in particular, I need to get what's called a DBA, as in doing business as. I file a legal DBA for JS Mortgage, and I have to do that with the county recorder's office in whatever county I'm doing business in. By the way, if there are any other JS Mortgages out there, I can't use that name. So you have to research and make sure that the name that you have is available. It's almost like website. You know, wouldn't you love to be able to go out there and say, I have the right to do google.com? If somebody already has it, you can't use it, and it works the same way with the DBA. Now, that allows you to be able to open bank accounts so that I could cash checks made out to JS Mortgage instead of having to have the checks made out to John Schroeder. So that's one of the ways that you become a sole proprietorship, is by filing a DBA statement with the county recorder's office, and that's another thing that you just have to Google as far as what your specific county requires. They probably have a specific form that you have to fill out and take down to them, and it usually costs you $10 or $15 to have it filed. And the reason that they're having you file something is that if somebody wanted to sue JS Mortgage, then they could go look up the public records and they would see John Schroeder is the owner of JS Mortgage, and here's how I can sue him, here's his address to go serve him with court paperwork. So that's close the corporation down and just do that DBA and open it up. And by the way, if you don't want to do a DBA, which I didn't, I was just John Schroeder Mortgage, I just accepted checks made out to my name individually, all I needed to do is to have a checking account, and that was all there was to it. It's no harder than that.
Just circling back for a minute to the E&O insurance, does that apply to different types of any type of business? The example used here is massage therapists.
Yes. What happens though, when you have hands, I'm not sure what the legal term is, but when you have hands-on going on with the customer base, then you wind up having a whole different level of exposure, and the insurance companies will guide you into which one you need for that. It's not that much more expensive. I mean, for them now, if you're a medical doctor and you're doing brain surgery, yes, you will pay $40,000 a year in insurance premium for malpractice. And it'll be more than $350 a year for a massage therapist to make sure that they're covered in case they were to, you know, press on the wrong disc in the wrong way and cause somebody injury. But it won't be that much more. So I'll call it $1,000 a year instead of $350. But that's where your insurance agent is going to help you quite a bit when you tell them exactly, do not lie to them. You want to tell them everything absolutely upfront as far as how that gets handled, because if you lie to them and they have a policy written out that says, okay, you're not a massage therapist, all you're doing is just giving people back rubs. No, if you're a massage therapist and you're doing other things and you go, no, I'm just going to do chair back rubs, those are two different things in terms of what liability is out there. And so you have to be full disclosure to the insurance company so that you are sure that you are covered. I'll give you an example. I had hazard insurance on a property that I was converting from a house into a business. That house burned down right in the middle of the construction. My insurance company said, you were getting ready to open this place as a business. I said, that's correct. And they go, well, you have it insured as a residence. We're not covering this burnt down house. Well, of course, that was only going to cost me a few $100,000, and so I was a little upset. But what it turned out to be in my favor on that was that it was not anything other than a personal residence until it opened its doors as a business, and that legally made the insurance company have to go ahead and write a check for the damages that were done because it had not been approved by the city as being a business operation yet. That was one of the things I'm really glad I never lied to anybody about, because it sure saved me a ton of money when that one came around.
Okay. I have another one here, and I see a couple of questions about this. Small business, and they want to purchase products from an online wholesaler. Do they need any kind of special license or tax ID to do that? Or can they,
yes. Oh, that's an excellent question. Let me deal with sales tax right off the bat, because there's what happens is if you have a wholesale or a resale situation, depends on whether you need to have a sales tax license or not. Retailers, for instance, when they buy their product, and let's just say that you're doing vitamins online, so that you buy your vitamins wholesale from some kind of a medical supply company and you sell them retail online, you have to pay sales tax or charge sales tax and then pass it on, kind of like payroll taxes, for all of the money that you collect online. Now, there are certain rules about that, and you'll notice if you've ever ordered anything from Amazon, sometimes you have to pay sales tax and sometimes you don't. If they are sending it out of state and they don't do business in the state that they're sending it to, they do not have to charge sales tax on it. I know this is going to sound funny to you, but guess what? Guess who's liable for the sales tax if you buy something retail from somebody out of state and they don't charge it to you? You are supposed to write a sales tax check to your own state when you buy it. Now, how do they have the ability to go audit that? No one's ever figured it out yet, and so that doesn't happen. And unless it's a high-ticket item, something like an automobile, they really don't bother going after. If you buy shoes out of state or office supplies or vitamins, nobody's given a big deal about that. But they really do follow up on it if you are shipping to the same state that you operate in, or have more than one location. In other places, you must have the ability to collect and forward on the sales taxes from there. What do you have to do in order to get a sales tax license? Again, that is typically done by the county, although it could be in some states depending on where you are. You go down to the county seat, the same place at that county recorder's office I was talking about, where you do the DBA filing, doing business as filing. They will also have a state franchise tax board, and they will have a Department of Revenue, is typically what they're called, and that's where you would find the Department of Revenue and fill out their form. It won't cost you anything. That's one of the few things in the government that isn't going to cost you anything to get a resale license, because they know when you get a resale license, it means you're going to soon be forwarding sales tax dollars to them, so they make that as easy for you as they possibly can. But you just have to file for that, and the good thing about that is that number allows you to go to your wholesale people, the vitamin supply company that you're buying wholesale. You give them that number and they don't charge you sales tax. It also means that you are a retailer, so that you qualify for wholesale pricing and you can get a lower discount and not be charged sales tax when you buy things. I hope I answered that, because that's kind of a complex question, but it's one that comes up all the time.
Okay. Just one more here that popped up. As far as a business is concerned, an ongoing business, in this case 3 years, he has 2 personal credit cards. Should he have a business credit card?
They have not really come up with anything that is a business FICO score yet. There is a company, and here are the 3 names that handle personal credit, and that's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Those 3 companies it's almost like having a Chevrolet and a Dodge and a Toyota. They're all in the vehicle business, but they are competitors with each other. Those 3 credit companies I mentioned are in the business of competing against each other to keep track of your credit. Anybody who is anybody, like if you were to get a mortgage, would pull all 3 of those credit reports on you just to make sure that they've covered the gamut. In the world of business, there's really only 2 options, and the 2 options are, one is that they get a list of your past creditors from you, and they call those creditors directly to be able to see what your payment record has been with them. Now, that's kind of a hit or miss, so that there is a company that handles things for the business side. They do not have a FICO score, but they do keep track of how well you've made your payments in the past. That company is called Dun & Bradstreet, D-U-N, 1N, Dun & Bradstreet, B-R-A-D-S-T-R-E-E-T. Dun & Bradstreet. So if you looked at dunandbradstreet.com, they would be able to track it. Now, the question about do I get a business credit card out there, you know, it's still only going to show up on your personal credit report, because the Visa and MasterCard will issue a card in a company name, but they're going to want the a person, if it's a small business, to be on the hook for any of the money that's owed. So if you do get one in the business name, you can do that, but it's not going to help your business credit in order to do that.
I've got one here. I'm not sure it's something that you would be able to answer, John, but we have someone in the Dutch Caribbean. Her products come from Puerto Rico. She's told that they're tax exempted because she's in the Dutch Caribbean. However, she's paying taxes on the products. I'm not sure if that's something that you can advise her on.
Well, if she's collecting sales taxes and she doesn't owe them, that's a whole different problem. But yeah, it is possible when you're going, especially when you're going from one country to another, you're going to wind up having the same issue all over again, and that sales tax is only supposed to be collected from the businesses where they're doing business. If you are actually selling that to another country, sales taxes do not apply. If you are collecting sales tax on something like that anyway, stop, because you shouldn't be, and that can actually get you in trouble. I mean, it may look like it's a great revenue source, but you do not want to charge taxes if you don't owe them to somebody else passing on. And I'm dead serious. For instance, let me give you an idea of how this works on the other side. I buy a car on eBay. I've done this. I buy a car from somebody on eBay. I have, it was in Virginia, one in Texas, one in Missouri. I've done this 3 times. They deliver the car via, one of those trucks that carries cars around, just drop it off me here. When I take that paperwork of the pink slip to my Department of Motor Vehicles out here in Arizona, I have to pay sales tax to Arizona for the price of that car. I do not pay sales tax to the private party state where that car came from. And that's one of the times, because there's so much money involved, that the state makes sure that they get paid their sales tax for that. But the same thing is true. If they're selling their products, no matter what it is, from one country to another, there are supposed to be sales taxes, what they call VAT, or value-added taxes, on top of the regular sales price, and that only winds up having to be collected in the recipient side, not on the salesperson side.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move along at this point. So,
very good. Instead of all the things you didn't know, let's move on to how to network your new business. I mentioned this in the beginning as far as trying to get involved with service clubs out there, especially Lions, Rotary, Kiwanis. One of the first things that most people say about that is they go, "Isn't that a bunch of old guys?" Well, I used to say that until I became one. But the idea is, with those kinds of service organizations, not only are they really good at being able to help in the community, and each one of them has, some of them are involved in scholarships, some of them wind up helping like battered women's shelters and food banks and things like that. But each of them has their outreach, but you're talking about people that are in the community that are drawn together to be of service to others. And it's really a great way to be able to make friends and network with people who now get to know you as an individual, and you share the same values and a desire to help others. Believe me, if you could have that relationship with everybody that you did business with, you'd feel a lot better. And so you can understand why networking like this works so well. You go in there, you meet all these people, and in my case, the second part down there, what really happened for me was joining a church. And when I was first I moved to the Arizona area, I joined a church over here, and the next thing you know, we started going, interest rates started dropping, people needed to do a refinance of their mortgages. They knew that I was involved in that business just because you learn about each other, and the next thing I know, even in a small church, if you got 100 mortgages out there, you're doing 50 of them. And $2,000 to $3,000 a pop, you can make some money doing that, and you can make that kind of money in a couple of months. So it's an amazing thing when you really get it to work for you. It's a little tougher to do that when you're an internet-based or online business, but obviously you can, if you can figure out how to get into people's homes and keep yourself in mind, I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit as well. So whether it's a service club or a church or whatever, being able, oh, I'll tell you another one that's good to be able to mix with a number of folks is to find out if there are any trade shows. I mean, we're all familiar with something like Comic-Con, you know, because of all the outrageous dress that goes on there. But if you're involved in, you know, I said vitamins before, in the mortgage business, they have trade shows that if you go to those, you will start to see all the vendors that are out there involved in that, and you will get to see all the people that go to those trade shows to find the latest, greatest developments and what it is that they do. And by the way, I don't care what kind of a profession you're in, as long as it's legal, they have trade shows. I'm pretty sure that cocaine cartels don't have trade shows, but anything in the legal side of the world will have one. I've not seen an industry that didn't yet. So trade shows in the service organizations I've mentioned here. Next slide. Here's mine. If you're talking about how do you wind up being able to get a hold and stay in constant contact with people in a way that is not that same darn newsletter you keep getting from your insurance agent, your real estate agent, your loan officer. When I wound up getting an email list, I put together what I called weird news. That's all it said in the subject line was weird news, like you're seeing there on the screen. And I would go ahead, weird news stories, and I had 3 or 4 sources for it, and I'd find 3 or 4 of those, and I did that on a weekly basis, by the way, so that I would put those weird news stories up there, and it was just interesting stuff. You know, it was just, you know, here's the, I guess to sum it up, like if you were, what's the last words that you hear from a redneck? It's hey, you all watch this. And so it's that kind of stuff where the guy goes out there and does something absolutely outrageous, and you just put the story out there that that's what they did, and then you move on to the next thing. I only had it be 2 or 3 sentences long for each one, and you might also be able to, at the bottom, you know, if there's a little interesting tidbit about, you know, interest rates are really low, or if there's something interesting about the mortgage business, I could add that down at the bottom, and they had something every week that was coming from me. I can't tell you how successful that was because they didn't unsubscribe because they liked weird news. So I never once had a person tell me, take me off your weird news list. I have had lots of people in other constant contact and things like that where you send out mass emails and they go, do not ever talk to me again. So I'm telling you, if you use a personal email address and make it so it looks professional, make sure, oh my gosh, make sure everything's spelled right and your grammar's proper when you're doing this, because this is your weekly contact with them that shows them how professional you are. All right, if you look through the slide presentation, I'll tell you, the first one that I sent past Russell over there had typos all over the place. You will not find them in this. Because you guys, if you were to see how many things I would, you know, screw up as far as spelling or grammar, how much, you know, credibility would I have as your spokesperson right here for how to be an entrepreneur? It's very important that you have that professional image in front of the customers that you're going to be in constant contact with. Next slide. So, and continuing, trying to see what really works in terms of how to network or advertise or promote your new business. There's a couple of interesting things on the left side there, the power of customer referrals. I don't know if you can read that well enough. 62% of consumers trust people like themselves when it comes to credible references, as you will, of who to use. In other words, people really like to be able to say, hey, you're just like me and you like using this roofer, this loan officer, this bank, this grocery store, whatever it is, that a good majority of people really like to go to people just like them. Well, guess who it is? That's your customer base. And as you make them happy, they refer you out in a way. 68% trust consumer opinions. That's the kind of stuff online where you get things like Yelp, you know, where people are, you know, even your rating on Amazon and that sort of thing, where they go, here's what everybody else is posting as far as what their experience was with you, and they trust that 68% of the time. Go up to 84% of consumers trust recommendations from people that they know are credible sources of information. Is that family members? You know, is it your minister at a church or rabbi or whatever? somebody that you really trust and they say, this is really a good thing, then you really got something there. If you look over to the right, there's been such a change in how much damage could happen from an unhappy customer. When it was back in 1983, they did studies and they said if you had an upset customer, they would influence about 10 people around them. And it worked good or bad. Actually, they tended to talk to more people when they were unhappy with you than if they were happy with you. Then you go to 2002. If you don't know who Jeff Bezos is, he's the Amazon guy, founder of it. And he said, you know, it used to be that you only hit 6 people, you know, back there in 1983 or 1950s or whatever. But because of the internet, when you talk now, when it comes down to blogs and emails and things going viral, you're telling 100 people that you the same good or bad information out there from your satisfied or dissatisfied customers. Now, in 2010, it's saying that one vocal customer reaches out to 1,375 people if they're starting to spread emails around, and you've seen things go viral, so just imagine what it is in 2016. I mean, you can see it speeding up all over the place. So the ability to be able to use the internet as your friend can also blow up on you, so making customers happy is pretty important. Next slide. Now, here was the service that I offered as a loan officer in order to be able to lock people in. Because it was very typical that you would have somebody say, well, I want to buy a house or I want to refinance, and they had done some things to their credit that was not good. If you look in the lower right-hand corner where you see the 2 things circled in green and then you have that green underline, that green underline, by the way, is showing you that all 3 of the companies, XP is Experian, TU TransUnion, EF is Equifax, all 3 of those competing credit repositories have this negative information. What is it that you're seeing there that's negative? I know it's not easy to tell because you don't know how to read these yet, but you see that CUR was 30. What that means is you're current right now, but you had a 30-day late payment. Now, it could say current was 60, current was 90, and if you see that yellow plus right there next to the 0, that's where a 1 would show up if it was a 60-day late, and the 0 to the right of that is where 90-day late payments would show up. But it's showing you that on the left side there where it says 4,200 REV, I know that's a credit card. That's a revolving credit card account that has a $4,200 credit limit. Look what's happened next to it to the right. They owe $4,228. That's a very bad thing to do to your credit because you're making the minimum payment of $84, but guess what? $84 doesn't cover the interest charges that $4,228 is accruing a month, and so it's actually going over your credit limit every month to make that minimum payment. Please make more or you're really doing some damage to your credit. Now, I just wanted to spend enough time explaining that credit report right there to be able to, and let me go over to the left for just a minute. You can see this is the algorithm, big long word there, but the algorithm that's used to be able to come up with your FICO score. You say, here's your payment history. 35% of your FICO score is made up of your payment history. Your credit usage, that means how much is being used on credit cards, how much is being used on installment, which would be things like car loans and student loans, and how much is being used on mortgages is the credit usage, or I'm sorry, types of credit down at the bottom. Credit usage is that 30% I was talking about that you do not go over the amount allowed. That 4,200 over there to the right being exceeded at 4,228 is hugely bad. I'll bet that's actually lowering this person's score by a minimum of 50 points. That's 50, not 15. So that's a very bad thing to do, is to exceed the amount of money that was originally set up. Notice that length of history is saying that 15% of your score is how many of the or how old or how seasoned the credit is on there. So those 4 things, when you give this kind of information to a customer, just like if you guys are hearing this for the first time, it's going to wind up, you know, it opens your eyes and you're going, gosh, I never knew that. Well, imagine I'm the person that's giving you that information and you need to have a home loan. Who are you going to talk to, especially when what I did with this is saying, you see these negative things on here, let me show you how to repair them. And so being able to do credit repair was my key to going in there beyond networking. I could just be able to take everybody's declines. In other words, there were other loan officers that were saying, oh, I can't help you, your credit's bad. I said, you know what, we can't help you today, but let me take you aside, let's do credit repair, and then when your credit is fixed, we're going to go ahead and put you back into a home. And so that was a very successful campaign for me. You figure out your own niche. It doesn't have to be credit repair, obviously, but you figure out a niche that works for your industry. Maybe I was talking about vitamins before. Maybe you have a specified program that shows them, you know, you give me the particulars of what your health goals are, and I'll give you a good vitamin regimen to be able to follow, that kind of thing. Actually, another one that came up with an interesting, they nationalized a local thing. We were talking about massage therapists before, but one that seems to be sweeping the country right now is called The Joint, which is a chiropractic franchise in which chiropractors sign up under this, and what happens is you just pay a flat fee, I think it's $49 a month, and you're able to get a chiropractic adjustment once a week under that $49 a month, and you can go to any of the Joint locations that are throughout the United States. I mean, I'm actually a member of it, and I visited my brother who lives in California, and I get adjustments out there, and all I have to do is just, you know, show them my little loyalty tag. You know, they do the LED or the laser read on it, and it keeps track of it in a network computer system. And so I'm able to get this done very inexpensively, and they used to do, I mean, chiropractors used to do that, going, you know what, you just pay me a flat $50 a month, you can come in once a week and be able to do that. Somebody made a national business out of the same thing. So my whole point here is to figure out your niche in your industry, figure out a creative way that will get people coming to you regularly and really starting to trust you, and now you have figured out how to network. Next slide. You with us, Russ? There you go.
Sorry, I'm having a problem here. Hold on. There we go.
All right. No,
there's a delay.
No problem. We have one of the things that can be very successful. In fact, one of my buddies in the mortgage business really put himself on the map by using telemarketers. And this was actually before they had the do not call list. I don't know how successful it is anymore. But what he did was he hired just about this many as what you're seeing on the graphic of 5 people. And they were literally on his personal payroll to go ahead and do cold calls to be able to see if he could generate mortgage leads. This is how he did it, as opposed to going through service businesses or, you know, networking at trade shows or anything else. He just put telemarketers to work on it. Now, telemarketers still are out there, and you know they are, whether they're legal or not. Or doing it all up front, but they don't generate a whole lot of business. That's why you're seeing my text up there. It says, if you were to make 50 cold calls per day, you know, just calling people out of the phone book, and it takes 100 calls before you even get somebody that will talk to you, and then out of those people that you talk to, you only close 1 out of 5 of them. And let's say with mortgages, you're going to wind up having 1 out of 5 sales leads. That means you're only going to close 1 sale every 10 days. So if you've got that many calls being made by all those people, and it costs you a couple of $1,000s, you can understand why you better be selling mortgages or expensive cars or houses or whatever it is, so that it can pay for the amount of payroll that it takes to hire those people to do that stuff for you. So if you're, I mean, it worked very well for him. I can tell you that guy probably made $500,000 and didn't have 100,000 of it going out on payroll annually, and he was making $500,000 a year off of their lead generation for the mortgage business. So there's definitely more than one way to be able to do this stuff. Next slide. So what you're seeing here is I needed to mention this because it's a niche that you almost never think of, and that is cable TV as opposed to broadcast TV. I was surprised if any of you were with me before when I talked about being the property manager for the Anaheim Marketplace back in Anaheim, California. We had a tremendous amount of success by specifically targeting an audience with cable advertising. For instance, you go onto you see the Home and Garden channel over there. That would be an outstanding one for a loan officer to use. You have a fix and flip house, program that's out there going, okay, you need this fixer-upper, I'll set you up with, and here's your commercial in between. You get the people at home going, yeah, we can fix and flip this house and make all kinds of money, but how do I buy the house? I don't have the cash to do that. Well, by golly, the commercial comes on in between the segments there, and I'm going to write that number down, and you have a tremendous response from it. And guess what? If you were to go ahead and, let's say, take a broadcast show, and you know, everybody's in a different city out there, but I'll just use where I was from there in Southern California. If I would have taken like an Oprah Winfrey kind of program or Wheel of Fortune or something like that and tried to buy a 30-second commercial on it, I'm going to get all of Southern California, and it's going to cost me about $100,000 for a 30-second commercial. If I put it on that HGTV and I just go after a specific zip code and it's not that big, it wasn't costing me $50. $50 to be able to go ahead and advertise my services on that show for that particular zip code. And I didn't want all of Southern California. So I had a tremendous amount of success being able to do that. Now, I also had the background in how to do video productions, which saved me a lot of time and a lot of money to be able to do my own TV commercials and make them still look professional. Next one. Actually, this is going to be my catch-all as far as what the internet advertising and all the different ways that you have of being able to reach out to customers. And I'll just pick a few of them out there. Certainly, most of you know what it's about when it comes down to blogs. Certainly, a Facebook page most people are familiar with. But here are some interesting ones. For instance, a YouTube account. You can actually start making your own videos of what it is that you do and giving all this helpful advice to people and making it a subscription so that when they get on there, and I'll just go to the loan officer stuff and say, look, I'm going to teach you how to do credit repair. And so here you are, here's how to do credit repair, and I do my videos online in order to do that. And when you repair your credit, you need a mortgage, get a hold of John Schroeder. That's an excellent way to be able to do it, and you use all of these different methods to be able to offer them something that draws them in, and then they know that you're there and available for them in order to be able to do something that they have to actually pay money for. Again, you see all those different options out there, and I don't need to go into any great shakes. And we're now about 90 minutes into it anyway. So I invite your questions, and I can answer them specifically on that. One company that I can mention that can help you stay in touch with a whole lot of people is called Constant Contact. They seem to have got a better branding program together of how to keep you in constant contact with all of your customer base and the email lists that you provide to them, and they do it without blogging or slogging down your server. If you've got a million email address list, you try to send that out from your own company computer, you'll tie it up in the next 17 hours. So they're very good at being able to handle that for you. And I think that's it. Hit the button, Russ. I think we're on to question and answer from there. Yep.
Yeah, I have I see a few here that we can answer. I have an interesting one here. This is someone who's worked in a survey call company. They said they legally don't have to follow the do not call list because they aren't selling anything. Would that be an effective way to find out if people have heard of their business
that's anytime you create a law, somebody will create a loophole, and that's exactly what goes on, because they're going to call up and say, hi, I'm doing a survey about people in home mortgages, and then you're going to find out in the survey questions whether or not they are a potential lead for a home mortgage or not, and the next thing you know, you now have a lead. It's just it's a longer way of going about, instead of saying, do you need a home mortgage? No, goodbye. Do you need a home mortgage? No, goodbye. Now they do the survey thing. It takes a little bit longer, builds a little more credibility, but it's the same way. It is effective, and it's one of the reasons why I still mention telemarketing, is that there are legal ways of being able to continue to do the cold calling and still get people there regardless of the do not call list.
Okay. I have another question here. What ways can you get to help start your business money? That basically sounds like we're looking for sources of funds.
Yeah, if you're trying to come up with no money on your own to be able to get going, I can tell you that isn't going to happen unless it's mom and dad or, you know, some benevolent person that's taking you under their wing. Let me talk about the SBA, or Small Business Administration, and what you can expect from somebody like them. You don't even think about trying to get involved in borrowing money from them unless you've got a minimum of 25% down, and that is to buy a business. That is not to open one up from scratch. So you need to have, and the reason I say that is the SBA only wants to lend on small businesses that have a track record. So you go out there and your track record is not, here's what I think I'm going to do for the next 2 years. You're going, I want to loan you money. I want to be able to help the individual entrepreneur out there, but I'd like to see the business that you're getting ready to buy. I want to see their past 3 years tax returns and see how much money they've made. Because if I'm going to loan you money, they need to have already shown that they make enough money to be able to pay this loan back. And so that's if you a minimum of 25% down in order to be able to do that. There is an exception. They will allow you to only put 10% down on the real estate if there is a real estate purchase involved in that. So let's say that you're getting ready to buy a restaurant or something like that. They would split out the total sales price and say how much of this is for the real estate, and you only have to put 10% down for that. And then you go to the, the restaurant and all the rest of it, and you say, all right, what the rest of the sales price is going to require is a minimum of 25, count on probably 35% down for most deals like that to get done.
Okay. Have another one here, actually someone who's applying for college and they're interested in what type of major that they should get into for a young entrepreneur.
Well, I'm going to tell you I did it exactly right. I don't care what major that you're going to go into, but I would strongly suggest getting a background that covers accounting somehow. If there was one skill that I have used more than anything else, it has to do with my ability to understand numbers, to balance checkbooks, to understand a income statement and a balance sheet, because everything you do in business has to do with being able to understand that stuff. When you go into a bank and you are able to speak their language to them, that impresses the heck out of them, and you have a much greater chance of being able to get a loan from them in order to be able to do that. If you go in there and you cannot impress them with your knowledge of money, why would they ever loan it to you? It just really does work that way. And I would not suggest an accounting major. I like finance as a major much better, because what does finance do? Did I have to take accounting classes? You bet. I had 3 or 4 semesters of accounting. But what it also teaches you about is everything that you're hearing me talk about today. I've had to talk about the SEC with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I have to be able to understand the difference between stocks and bonds, and it does cover all the things that have to do with the different forms of ownership. I'm not an anomaly. Maybe I'm a little different from most people in the width, if you will, the horizontal movement of the different kinds of businesses that I've been in, but they've always been service businesses. But believe me, anybody that's 60 years or older and has been through the world of business, I am not unusual in being able to know everything that I know right now. If you were an entrepreneur, if you've been working for the same company, you probably have a smaller experience level than that. But I am not I'm a jack of all trades, master of very few.
Okay. I've got a good question here about how to make your videos stand out on YouTube. Is there any ideas that you can recommend?
Yeah, one of the things that's very important, and what an interesting question. I'm just surprised that question comes up, because why would you ask somebody like me, except I have a tremendous background in, if you probably remember, the recording studio, and that I produced over 100 episodes of television programming in the Los Angeles broadcast area. So I do have a background in answering that question. And one of the things that comes up in studies over and over again is to be able to get your message across and capture their attention within the first 5 to 10 seconds. because you don't have more than about 30, well, YouTube, you don't have a limited time at all anyway. But guess what? It's pretty much got to be 5 seconds now, because YouTube, when you're used to, when you have those commercials forced on you and you have to watch them for 5, 4, 3, 2, skip. So they have really forced it into, we have no patience for anything that hasn't really interested us in the first 5 seconds. So that now it has to do with, I'll tell you, they lost me a lot on some of the, I've watched the Super Bowl. I'm really a sports fan, I am, but I watched the Super Bowl to see what in the world they're doing with commercials these days, and a lot of them just went right by me. I mean, what was it? Monkey baby something. I'm sorry, I don't remember what they combined like 3 different creatures into one really scary thing that was running around in the living room, and I didn't get it. I mean, it missed me. Did you see that one too, Russ?
Yes, I did. I didn't get it either.
Now, maybe you and I are too old, but I was looking at that and I'm going, okay, if I was young, sitting around munching on munchy food and drinking beers and watching the Super Bowl, I might laugh at that, but I don't know what that was selling. I mean, to this day, I don't know what it was selling, and I don't really want to know. So, yes, capture their attention in the first 5 seconds, and make sure that your commercial is exuding the image that you want the people to have of what it is that you do, and make sure that they know how to contact you. I'll give you an example of a TV commercial that happened a long time ago. Of course, Russ and I are going to be old enough to remember this. Russ, do you remember the luggage commercial in which the person checked into the airport and it went through the conveyor belt and a gorilla picks it up and starts slamming it around? I mean, that was hilarious. I mean, that commercial made me laugh harder than anything I think I've ever seen on TV back in the 60s. And the interesting thing is, let's try it. Russ, who was that commercial for?
Samsonite.
Sure. And do you know 95% of the people in the world answer Samsonite, and it was an American Tourister commercial. And the reason being is Samsonite was the #1 luggage provider in the world, and American Tourister didn't do a good enough job of promoting their name, and they actually helped their competition. Be very careful with this stuff. I mean, sorry to set you up like that, Russ, but I did the same thing. I'm going, because I was trying to find that commercial on YouTube, and I kept looking for Samsonite, and I couldn't find it. And it wasn't until I did some, kind of backhanded searches that I was able to come up with it being American Tourister. One of the biggest marketing fails in history.
Okay, I've got a couple questions surrounding good credit scores when starting a business. An example would be like a dog walking or a business. Is it a good thing to have a good credit score when you're starting a business? Does it make a big difference?
Well, especially if you're going to be accepting credit cards, there's no question that you want to be able to do that. Some things that you can fool yourself on is thinking that you can accept credit cards, and let's say that you have a tablet of some kind, an iPad or whatever. The only way that iPads work in order to be able to do that is if you are in a hotspot. So, I mean, if you've got a cell phone hotspot to make sure that your iPad can Wi-Fi, or it has its own, cell phone connection to be able to make sure that that it can go on a cell phone line to be able to get the authorization and approval on the credit cards. Unless you've got that, you might as well not even go down that road. I mean, if you're over to client's house, you're going, gee, could I have your password to get into your Wi-Fi so I can approve your credit card? That just doesn't work. So you really do need to get the handheld machines in order to be able to get a credit card approval. And those are not cheap. You can even pick them up used, but they'll be about $300 or $400 in order to be able to have that available. And frankly, unless you've got, I'd say at least $500 a month in credit card sales, you're not going to want to buy one because of the cost of maintaining it. As a minimum, I think they're $50 to $75 a month to maintain the account. With the cell phone account and being able to do what you need to do. In terms of credit, yes, you will not get one of those unless you have excellent credit to begin with. So they're not handing credit card vendor accounts out to anybody. By the way, here's how that works. Let's say that you sell something for $100. Typical discount rates on credit cards is that you personally will only see $98 of that on the best days. all right, so that you have a $100 sale, but only $98 will actually hit your bank account. Visa or MasterCard or whomever is going to keep the other two. If you have bad credit and you can still manage to, you heard me mention one in particular, Peachtree or HBSC, are two banks that will give you, if your credit's not so good, they can still get it to you, but guess what? You're going to give up about 10% of your money to them in order to be able to have the right to accept credit cards. So now you're only getting 9 cents on the dollar. And you can see how having good credit is so important to being able to maximize your profits.
I've got a question here. I'm not quite sure what they're asking, but it appears to be a business where they're working with the government, and he's asking himself how to make sure that my business or myself do not get in trouble with the government. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts on that. It can be, and I'll tell you, because it's not just me and my personal experience, but you know, on birds of a feather, I know a lot of entrepreneurial people. And I'll tell you, a friend of mine who was in the landscaping business did some business with the city of Phoenix, and he went out there and he was hiring, you know, undocumented workers to be able to do the work for him. And but he did have some people that were W-2 employees. And so he goes, okay, I've got to be able to show these, you know, these folks this I-9 information that my employees are documented and all that. And his bill got up to about $40,000 that he submitted to the city of Phoenix, and they go, oh, and by the way, we want to be able to have your proof of workers' compensation insurance coverage. Well, he didn't have any. Well, the one thing you would think of is, oh, okay, well, you go get workers' compensation insurance coverage, and the next thing you know, it didn't cover the period of time in which the workers had done it, and the city of Phoenix wasn't going to pay him this $40,000, and he doesn't know this until after the work has been performed. Those are the kinds of things that you can really get in trouble with if you do not dot every I and cross every T when you're dealing with the government. Also, when you're dealing with the government, expect about 90 days. I mean, cities are a little better, but if you're dealing with the federal government, unless you're on a regular pipeline with them, it takes about 90 days to get a check out of those people. I have done work for the federal government, and that's, I mean, oh yeah, we'll pay you in 30 days, and it just keeps going and going, and eventually you get it in 90, and you don't, you know, it doesn't do any good to sue them. It isn't going to go any faster. So you just be ready for that. If it's the federal government, it takes longer. State governments are between 30 and 60 to be able to get paid.
Okay. Had a couple questions about going back to the credit card discussion that you had earlier. Mm-hmm. How to get late payments and those types of things off of a credit report. Can you kind of advise them on that a little bit?
Yep, you have the mouse clicker in your hand, go forward, and I'll tell you when to stop.
Alrighty, no problem.
Not that one.
Okay.
Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. It's going to be the last one. Okay, stop right there. Yeah, this is the contact information for the three companies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. By the way, Experian's by far the largest of all three of those, the one in the middle. You have the company name and the mailing address for those people, and you would write a letter to them, what's called a credit dispute letter, in order to be able to get your any of the negative items removed from there. Now here's the point. Can you have negative items that belong on there removed? And the answer is yeah, you can. And the way that it works is anytime you file a letter with one of these three companies, and by the way, do not go directly to Visa, MasterCard, or whoever it is. You file it with them, and I guarantee it doesn't do you any good, because as soon as they get that thing where you think it's been deleted off of there, it just refreshes automatically the next month. That's just the way their systems work. I know it isn't right, but it is the way it happens. If you do it with these three companies, you now have federal laws working on your side. And what happens is when you file a dispute and you say, hey, I've got this charge off, or I have a late payment, or whatever, you the first thing you have to make sure of is, and I'll take a credit card late payment, a 30-day late on your credit card, you really want that off your credit, the first thing you have to do is close that account. And the reason I say that is because even though you can get these credit companies to take that late payment off of the credit, the next month that credit card company throws it right back on there in the great big data dump that they do to all three companies. So that's why it keeps coming up every time that credit card is refreshed on a monthly basis to be able to report the history. So what you do instead is you close that account so it doesn't refresh at the end of the month. So let's say that you have a $5,000 card and you've got $1,000 in credit on it. Open up a different card, transfer that $1,000 balance over to somebody else, and then close that credit card account out, then dispute it, and then you can get it to go away. Once you do, then it doesn't refresh automatically because the account is no longer open. That's one of the things that I'm able to teach people when I talk about being able to do credit repair. And one of the best times, we just missed it, but I can tell you that one of the best times in order to be able to dispute something is in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Because when you file the letters, all those credit repositories send a letter out to each one of the creditors and say, you have 30 days in which to respond to this letter. If you do not respond, we're going to remove it automatically. You can start to understand why people that are involved in credit, if you dispute it around the time of Christmas, then it's going to get set on somebody's desk because you don't make money by following up on something like that. And they're too busy trying to make money off of the Christmas season by providing more credit to other people. And so if they don't file that letter back within the 30-day period of time, it gets deleted automatically and it stays gone forever as long as the account is not still open. That's why I said you have to close an account before you can get it to go away. I could go on all night with this, but I'm going to stop there because that's the quickest answer to that question.
Okay. I have several questions about starting restaurants and food trucks and how to, get the funds, the resources to start those. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. Let me tell you one thing. I have like a very good friend of mine is a general manager of a Red Lobster. And so I have sat down with him for hours. In fact, I talked to him for a long time when I go to eat at Red Lobster over at his place. And I have a tremendous understanding of what it took for him to get where he is right now. Let me warn you of one thing. That is one business that you are going to work harder at than anything else with less of a return. Remember when I said if you're going to sell something expensive? Even Lobster Fest is pretty cheap when it comes to Red Lobster. And he says, we make plenty of money around here. He goes, my God, I wish I'd gotten into the mortgage business because I realize that, for every customer I have over there, there's fewer of them, but I wind up making thousands of dollars off of it. Or I might net $20. When a customer goes in and out of the place, and there's so many more moving parts to it. Food, even if it's a food truck or a fast food place, let alone a standalone stand-up restaurant like that, is going to be some of the hardest hours you ever put in, and it is a very fickle business. Unless you're a huge franchise out there, and even if you are, you can have some trouble. But independent restaurants out there are one of the most turned over businesses out there. It's people become fickle and wind up saying, I'm going to go eat someplace else. You have a bad experience in a restaurant, you're less likely to go back to them than just about any other kind of business. It's a tough one. But if you're absolutely set on it, that you really want to go to work for a huge franchise like Red Lobster or whomever, Olive Garden, actually they were the same owners for a while. Red Lobster went out on their own. But they go to work for one of those big franchises, learn everything there is to know behind the scenes. And frankly, my buddy who's the general manager, he had to spend a year to a year and a half being the kitchen manager, being the food and beverage manager, manager of the servers and so on, to be able to learn each and every part of aspect, if you will, of that business before he was promoted to general manager. That's how serious those people are. He had to put in 5 years before he could make GM. And that's how much knowledge you need to have in order to do a good job of it.
Okay. I have someone talking about the mortgage-based business that you run. Maybe you could provide a little more detail about how that works and how you network with your customers in that business.
Yeah, there are really two ways that you wind up making money in the mortgage business, and that is you get paid by what's called an origination fee. That the customer actually writes, part of the big check that they write at the end is going to be a fee that they pay to the loan officer, or the company that did what they call originate the loan, took the loan application. So if you are paying a fee to them, that's one way you make money. The other way that you make money is the legal term is yield spread premium, also called rebate, sometimes called the backside. And what happens is if, let's say that the going rate today is 4% on a 30-year fixed mortgage, and I can talk you into paying 4.25% on that same loan, they are going to pay me, the lender, who is actually coming up with the money to loan to you for that mortgage. If I can get you to pay a higher amount than what the going rate is at that time, they are going to pay me money in order to be able to do that. No wonder loan officers are looked at like used car salesmen. It's kind of the same thing. So yeah, if I can get you to pay a higher rate than what the going rate is out there for the people with the best credit, then I'm going to wind up making a check from the fees you pay me as well as the fees that I get from the people that fund your loan. So that's really how it works. And so that's why it pays to be able to shop around. If somebody's out there saying, I'll get you this rate or I'll get you that rate, and you compare them one to another, it behooves you to do that. Then there are others that will be liars to you, and they'll go, I'll get you the lowest rate. You're going to go down the road, spend 30, 45 days getting your ducks in a row with them, and then they're going to say, oh, that rate's gone now. You can't have it anymore. And since you're so far down the road and it'd take you another 4 to 6 weeks with somebody else to go get a loan approved with them, and maybe the rates will go even higher beyond that, now you're in trouble again. So I hate to say it, but there's a number of ways that you can get ripped off in that business.
Okay. Got a few questions that are repeats of things that we've kind of gone over. Mm-hmm. Just looking here for anything else. As far as, here's one. As far as Dun & Bradstreet is concerned, mm-hmm. She's asking, do I need to have my business with Dun & Bradstreet?
You can. It's not that, believe me, not too many people use that as their credit, go-to credit thing unless it's a huge corporation. For smaller companies and things like that, I'll tell you what would happen. I remember what happened with Dun & Bradstreet the first time I encountered them was somebody was checking on my credit, one of the people that was going to sell to me on credit, and Dun & Bradstreet called me to ask me what a good credit source I was. So their information largely comes from you, not that they don't do independent verification of it, but they start saying, okay, who are your vendors and blah, blah, blah. Dun & Bradstreet is doing the exact same thing that individual companies do. And I don't think they do it as well. So to me, just do a great job of paying your own vendors that are extending credit to you as is, and you will get excellent references whenever you try to get credit outside of that.
Okay. I don't see any others at the moment. I think, let's see, I'm just going back here through our list, and I saw one here that yeah, I don't see it here. I guess it must have been further back. I know I saw one earlier. It was somebody who wants to get into the trucking business, and he was scared to get into the business because it seems like a tough business to be in as far as guys getting into it and then getting out. Any thoughts about that type of business and
yeah,
how to approach getting into it?
There's really two ways in trucking transportation to make a living. One is to own your own, hauling truck, not the containers, but the actual engine, powertrain vehicle. And you own it, care for it, and pay for it yourself, or you can go to work as simply a driver where that kind of a truck is provided for you. I would strongly suggest the latter until you figure it out on your own. You go ahead and you drive and let the company pay you to just be a driver, then you're going to be in the industry, like I said in the very first slide, not only something that you really like to do, but do something that you understand and know and love well. And going to work for a company as opposed to trying to do it on your own off of the start is a much better way to go about it. That way you're going to start to understand what are the true expenses involved here. How much am I going to have to pay for diesel fuel? What are how often do I keep turning this truck back in for maintenance? I'm going to be able to talk to a lot of folks out there just because I'm going to run into them and just start running questions by them and say, hey, if you had it to do over again, would you buy this whole big rig and work on your own? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? And how do I get my own customers? And so on and so forth. And frankly, one of the ways that it happens when you have your own truck is you get involved with websites that are bid sites. And all that happens is their entire business is to go out there and say, here are all of these independent truckers that I have that are affiliated with me, and here are the rates that they charge. So if you say you want to go from LA to New York, and we're going to give you a quote based on what your agreement is with them to post, and you are going to live up to that. And again, it's not an easy way to go about making a living, and a lot of things can go wrong. So learn everything that you can while the risk is in somebody else's pocket. Don't be in such a hurry to try to be an entrepreneur on your own.
I have another question here, which deals with the real estate investment business, and any thoughts on where they would go to find information on that, and what they need to know in order to get started.
Well, probably one of the best ways that I see those things work is where you have a few people that come together, each one of them with something to bring to the table. I'll tell you how it typically works. You wind up having a money guy who doesn't really need to know a lot. He just happens to be able to write a check. You have a real estate agent who can go ahead and buy and sell these homes and hold it. When I say agent, I mean broker. He actually has the license so that he doesn't have to pay anybody else, and those commissions, which are 6% of, so for every $1,000 or $100,000 of a house's price on both the buy and the sell end is $6,000 per 100,000. That's a lot of money that's that's being captured right there. You also need to have a title company that's involved. If you haven't been involved in real estate, I don't want to go into detail about what that is. But if you have a money guy, you have a real estate agent, and you have a title company, and you also need an appraiser who can really be close on what it's going to take, what the true value of a property is, and finally you need a contractor, somebody that knows how to go in there and fix and flip that thing to make sure that you take all of the, know where you get the biggest bang for your buck of what to be able to fix on a property before you turn around and sell it. You put those people together into one group, and those are the most successful ones that I've seen go out there because everybody's bringing something to the table and they all rely on each other to do a good job of it. And frankly, you really need to be good friends because that'll get you through the tough times.
Yeah, I have another one here, and we're getting down to the last 5 minutes or so, so we're only going to have time for a few more questions. But no, wait a minute, the thing just moved. Oh, okay, here we go. This is dealing with manufacturers and buying inventory from them. He wants to know, he owns a tire shop and buying tires from a big company. Any advice on let's see here, I'm just looking at two different posts here. Any advice from you on how to go about doing that in a the best way possible?
Yeah, there are a couple of terms for it, an inventory loan or a floor loan, and it's actually not, it's smaller bucks, but it's not a whole lot different than what a car dealership runs through. Like I said, you don't have $50 million to write a check to General Motors, to get your lot full of Chevys. And you don't have the money to be able to just write a huge check for all of the tires it takes to be able to do a Pirelli or Goodyear store, or whatever the local tire franchise is. So you make a deal usually with a bank that does what's called a flow or inventory loan, and you say, I'm going to give you 20 cents on the dollar. So in other words, for every $100 of tires that I'm buying, I am going to contribute 20 cents to that purchase, and you're going to contribute 80 cents. And so you have an ongoing loan that winds up working almost like a credit card, because what happens is every time you sell the tires, you are going to repay that 80 cents to the bank because you don't have that tire securing it anymore. And what happens is you go ahead and you sell the tire for a profit, you keep the profit, you get your 20 cents back, and you give the 80 cents plus interest over to the bank. So that's what happens with an inventory loan right there. If you can be lucky enough to be able to get set up on what's called a consignment basis, that means that if like you've got a friend or a relative in the industry and they just set you up with the inventory, you pay as you go. They'll set you up with a minimum inventory to be able to make sure you can supply your customers reasonably, and then you just keep writing a check every day to the company and say, send me new tires, and here's my payment for the old one. Those are really the only two ways, other than just flat out buying it, that you really have an option. And whether it's a bank or whether it's a private individual that would loan you money for your inventory, it doesn't really matter. It works the same way. Banks will tend to be a lower interest rate, though.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to end it here. John, we're closing in on 8 o'clock here almost. I think you need to take a breath now or get some oxygen. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I'd like to thank John for taking the time out of his schedule to talk with our students. And believe it or not, they turned the lights off here on me, so I'm having trouble seeing. I don't think anybody knew I was still in the office here. But I'd like to thank everybody, and I want to let you know that within 24 hours, you will receive an email from me with a little survey on it. It's only 2 questions, and basically, if you could just take the time to fill that out and give us your thoughts on the webinar, tell us what you liked and what you didn't like. So in the future, we can use your feedback in the future to improve our presentations. Also, many of you evidently weren't here at the beginning, but we will be putting the webinar, the webinar up on the community. It'll be, you'll click on the academic in the community, and then in the window that opens, look for business. And click on that. You'll find the recording there. We won't probably have that up until next week, so don't look for it at the end of the webinar here. It won't be that fast. So you probably see that Tuesday or Wednesday next week up there. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I appreciate all the interaction. We had some great questions tonight. I think John's presentation provided a lot of good information. I see a lot of positive comments here about the things that you went over, John. So I think you helped some people.
Well, great. It was fun.
All right. Well, stay tuned. We'll have another Meet the Entrepreneur later in probably the early spring, and we look forward to having you attend those. And have a good night.